and was head of the fund managing of the biggest real estate company in Denmark for
the biggest
for private investors, where we have roughly 10 billion euros. We see a bigger growth here in GDP than we see in the western part of Europe. Firstly, because we expect prices will increase, as I mentioned, because we think the level will go up, wages will go up. We think rent will increase over time, but we also believe that there will be more renters in the future than owners. Sometimes you have to outsource something so you don't use a lot of your time doing something that you maybe not so good at.
Bulgaria is preparing to join the Eurozone.
On the long term, it will for sure attract bigger investors. If you have 1, 2 apartments and want to grow, then the best thing you can do is the trend is your friend. And when I say that is when you found this niche, something that you're good at, and you have the trend is the right way, then you just have to.
Това е Банкноти от имоти. Бизнес предаването за елитни инвеститори, което образова и вдъхновява. Дами и господа, добре дошли в сезон номер 2 на Банкноти от имоти, българският подкаст за инвестиции в недвижими имоти. Аз съм доктор Щелян Калчев и за мен е огромно удоволствие днес да ви хвана за ръка и да ви разведа из къщата на компания, която има повече от, слушайте, 500 милиона лева активи в България. Правилно чухте, 500 милиона. Нашият гост има повече от 2 десетилетия опит в инвестирането и в управлението на инвестиции. Първоначално той има богат опит, включително и в бизнеса с корабоплаването, където е управляващ и изпълняващ инвестиции от името на група инвеститори. Също така той има нещо много интересно – опит в политиката, където е вземал различни позиции, включително е бил член на парламента или депутат на държавата, от която идва, а именно Дания. През последните 5 години нашият гост се фокусира върху инвестициите в недвижими имоти и преди да стане главен изпълнителен директор на компанията, която е в момента, той е бил ръководител на отдела за управление на най-големият датски инвеститор в недвижими имоти. С огромно удоволствие днес ще приветстваме нашия гост, който е изпълнителен директор на компанията София Residential, главен изпълнителен директор, CEO, а компанията е част от един голям холдинг, за който ще разберем след малко, и е скандинавски инвестиционен фонд, който е насочен към инвестиране във всички части на веригата за стойност в имоти в региона на Югоизточна Европа, със специален фокус в София. Инвестират в парцели, проекти за развитие на имоти и завършени имоти с цел, обърнете внимание, отдаване под наем. Чрез техните инвестиции фондът участва в над 20 проекта за жилищни имоти в различен етап. Както споменах, изчисленията показват, че активите на компанията или на групата от компании в България са над 500 милиона лева. Вау! Това се случи изключително рязко. Затова за мен е огромно удоволствие днес, скъпи гости, дами и господа и приятели, да посрещнем нашия гост в сезон номер 2 на Банкноти от имоти, изпълнителен директор на София Residential, господин Anders Johansson. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.
Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good, thank you. It's also a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. In our conversation before we started, you said that you're just about to leave.
That's true, yes.
Going to?
Back to Denmark.
Back to Denmark?
Yes.
Great. I just read in Bulgarian some of the accomplishments in your life, but could you tell us a little bit more and how you came in the real estate sector, keeping in mind that interesting career of yours before that?
Yes, of course. I understood a part of it, but not all of it. It's still my Bulgarian is still not very good. So thank you. Yes, I started my career actually in shipping as a ship broker, where I was in charge of investment projects, where we invested in bulk carrier and other kind of assets in the shipping sector. And that developed over time, and my interest for investment have always been great. But then after some years I started to join politics, started in local politics, became a member of the local municipality and the council there. And then just developed over time, and then in 2019 I became a member of the Danish Parliament, and was actually 15 to 19 was member of the Danish Parliament. And actually I was a spokesman of businesses at that time, member of the Conservative Party, So I had actually also the political responsibility for the real estate branch, but that's a different story. But that was on the other side of the table in politics, doing laws and stuff like that for the businesses. But then afterwards, after I left the parliament, then I became dedicated to the investment sector in real estate in Denmark, and was head of the fund managing of the biggest real estate company in Denmark for the biggest for private investors, where I have to calculate it into euros again, but I think the assets under management was roughly 10 billion euros or so.
10 billion euros, which is close to 20 billion Bulgarian leva.
Yes, correct.
That's amazing.
So yeah, that was the biggest. So
I gotta tell you, you are the richest, or a representative of the richest company that has been in my podcast.
But unfortunately, I was only managing the company, so I was not owner of them. But anyway, that was what led to why I'm here today. Because then 1.5 years back, I was contacted by actually the founder of the Sophia residential development, who lives in Sofia today. And he asked if it could be of my interest to join the company as a CEO.
He's also Danish or Bulgarian?
He's also Danish, yes, okay, and moved to here 2 years ago.
All right.
I said that sounds interesting, and then I've been there since. So that was the first time that I experienced or started coming to Sofia, experiencing the market. So that was quite different, of course, from Denmark, sure. But many of the fundamentals are the same, and that's also actually, I think, the message that I will try to send today, that the fundamentals are the same, but how we see it is that in the western part of Europe, or Copenhagen, which is where we have our background, it's maybe some decades ahead of the development in Sofia, and that is why that some of the same signs that we saw in Copenhagen, for instance, 20-30 years ago, we can see them here now. And that is one of the reasons why we're here, because we expect, or we believe, of course, that we will see the same development here, like we saw in, for instance, Copenhagen.
That's going to be a good one, because if you win, that means the local market and the local players also win. I cannot hold on myself, like my bones are, just scratching my bones, ask you, what did the politics what did you learn in politics which could be applied in real estate business?
One thing you learn is patience.
Oh, really?
Patient, yeah. And when you negotiate and when you come to a new market, you have to be patient.
Yes.
And what I mean about that is, I think that the mistake many foreigners do when they come to a new market, they are maybe too impatient. And you have to learn the market, you have to learn who are the big stakeholders, how are the regulations, you have to be patient about that. So that is at least one thing that I can say.
Why should an investor be a patient investor? Why do you think this virtue helps in the business? Patience, honestly.
Yeah, if I start somewhere else. Jens, who founded the group, which is a big, which is Sophia Residential today, he started coming to Sofia 15 years back. He waited the first 5 years. He was just looking with different stakeholders, just making impression of the city, where to invest, which area to invest in, and then after 5-8 years, they did their first investments.
5 years.
Yes,
wow.
And that was just to get a sense of how is the market, where is the right place to be in the market. But then after that, you should not be impatient. Then you have to you should be impatient actually, because then you have to grow, and you have to grow fast. So when you have found your niche, then you have to move fast. Yes.
I love it.
And that is what we have done. We started we spent many years finding the right niche, and now we have to explore what we have found, because now we have found a niche where we think we can develop a very big opportunity for our investors.
Mr. Johansson, let me show you something. It's in Bulgarian, and this is from a newspaper which says that direct foreign investments in Bulgaria are falling down and shrinking with almost 80% based on the same amount of time in 2023. At the same time, your company, Sophia Residential and SE Residential and Sophia Residential Development is investing in Bulgaria. What do I miss? Why people are showing lack of desire to invest, and all of a sudden, a company which has a Danish origin, probably representing investors from all around the place, increases investments in Bulgaria. Tell me why.
First of all, we are here for the long term. So if it goes up and down on the short to medium term, that does not affect our appetite to invest. Because when we see the fundamentals are here, we see that the economy is stable, the currency is stable, we see a bigger growth here in GDP than we see in the western part of Europe. We see wages are growing, and it might fluctuate 1 year up and down because maybe prices go too fast in a certain period and then they stabilize, then they go back. But the fundamentals are pressing prices upwards, and we expect that they will do that for many years to come, because there's still a big gap between Western Europe price-wise and to SEE, the SEE region, for instance. But there's still a big price gap between the properties, how they are valued in, for instance, Copenhagen, where I come from, and in Sofia. And
what is the average price? Sorry for interruption, but the average price in Copenhagen,
say
residential?
Roughly for apartment central, roughly 10,000 euros.
10,000 euros. So we're like, let's say, one-fourth.
Yeah, a fourth.
One-fourth, yes. Or
of course,
less.
they're different. It's different cities, so you cannot compare them one to one. But there's still a big gap. So my expectation is that the coming 10 years, the prices, this gap will narrow. That is our expectations.
Why do you think that? Based on what?
Because if it today is, say, 4 times more expensive in Copenhagen, then maybe in 10 years it's 2 times or 3 times more expensive. It will still be more expensive, but the gap will be narrowing. That is my expectation. And that is because I can see the fundamentals are here. I can see that wages grow faster here than they do in Denmark. I can see that the growth of GDP is bigger here than it is in Denmark, or in Western, now I say Denmark, but in Western Europe in general. Yes. For instance, next year, or this year, sorry, now in 25, the expectation is for GDP growth in Bulgaria is 2.5 to 3%. In Germany, for instance, it's 0.7%. So it's just to say the gaps are narrowing down going forward. That's our expectations in the coming decades. So we're here for the long run and to be part of the society, and we're also very keen on investing into to Sophia. We're looking into ESG values also, which is also an important part of our investments, because it's the long term, and we also expect that, for instance, ESG will be something that will be adding value in the long term when we one day want to sell our portfolio, because at the end of the day, of course, the investors also
you're looking for an exit.
Want to exit, but that will be many years
down the road. So you just made a lot of people disappointed when they hear that, because in the last years, probably at least 5, I've been hearing all the time on all the real estate forums, all social media, property prices are going to go down. There's going to be a crash in the market. There is a balloon. It will pop up. And all of a sudden, somebody who is a true professional, not only you personally, but the company you represent, you believe that the prices will go up. And you just mention why. So I hope we're going to meet in 5 years again, and it will be like, okay, let's rewind and let's see who was right and who was not. I also do believe that the prices will continue to grow up, but let's see. So how would you describe your business in Bulgaria? Would you tell a little bit more about what exactly do you do here, and what do you own, and what is your scope of business?
Yes, we actually invest in the whole value chain of real estate. So we have we invest in plots where we just have a piece of land waiting for maybe to gather a bigger plot, or waiting for building permit, waiting to develop an area. So that is one part of our investment. Then we have a development part where we invest in the construction, making deals with building companies, construction companies.
But you don't build by yourself,
We don't build ourselves.
You outsource.
We outsource the
Why is that? Because in our pre-conversation, it sounded like you almost closed the circle, if I can say it, but excluding construction. Why not construction as well?
Well, it might be in the future, but we also have to build up our organization. So we have to focus on the things that we have been good at, and then outsource what we don't know a lot about yet. So it might be different in the future, but for now that's the way we have done it. But then we make deals with sub-suppliers, builders, carpenters, all kind of sub-suppliers for constructing, doing the finishing works. And after finishing work, we have a property management, SEE, residential, our property management fund. And that is like a buy and hold fund where we have exposure to the market for the years to come in the rental market. And why is that? That is firstly because we expect prices will increase, as I mentioned, because we think the level will go up, wages will go up. We think rent will increase over time, but we also believe that there will be more renters in the future than owners. Today it's like 90%, roughly 86-90% are owners in Sofia. Compared to the Western Europe, it's way less. It's roughly 50-50 who are tenants and who are owners.
Why do you think so? Why do you think it will happen?
I think there are several reasons for that. First of all, there's something about pricing. As prices goes up, there will be some young couples or young people who will stay in the renting market for a longer period of time before they buy their first flat, maybe. That is one reason. But the other reason is that there are also a trend in the market where new young couples, they might want flexibility. You have a flexibility when you're a tenant.
Yep.
You can start with a studio. You can get 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom apartment. When you get kids, you can get, and then finally maybe you decide to buy a house or a bigger flat or whatever. But it gives some flexibility, and I think that the current generations will be more focused on having access to an apartment. If it's 1 or 2 or 3-bedroom, then they will be focused on owning it, because then they can spend their money instead of saving in an apartment. They can spend their money on pleasure.
That's interesting. So there is a shift in the.
I think that would be a trend also coming here, because that is a trend we see in Copenhagen. I've seen for the last 5-10 years.
But you know what? Many Bulgarians would say, "My home, my fortress."
That's
and
true.
Usually, when people have saved some money, they invest in what they know, and they know best real estate. By the way, I can also support my kind of like prediction is the same. It's going to be tougher and tougher for the people to buy, especially young, because as much as the prices are going up and you still have to go down with 10, 15, 20% down payment, that down payment is growing as a percentage from growing final price, which is going to be harder for the people to save it, and it will take more time to be saved in general. And a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, let's see the structure of the American market. And I was like, really kind of like, not shocked, but I was like surprised that 42%, this is what I remember, it might not be correct now, but 42% of the single family homes in the States are owned by real estate investors.
Yes.
Small and big. And this opens, of course, the door about the big guys like BlackRock and somebody else. And do you think they're coming? Most probably they're coming to Bulgaria, right?
They will come. They will come.
Yes, because this is the trend, right?
But for sure they will not be interested in buying one flat here and one flat there.
Absolutely.
And that is also a reason why we only, when we build, we do both. We do for the purpose of renting, where it's a whole property for renting also, and that is quite new. It's not that many who does that.
No, there is a trend in the last years built to rent.
Yes, exactly.
But it's not like
because, no. But I'm sure when one of the big players want to go into the market, they will only look for that kind of properties. They don't want a property with 10 apartments for rent and the other are owned by individuals, because they want some efficient managing of the properties. Absolutely. And they can get that with big with big volumes. So that is also, of course, one of our philosophies behind this, building up a big portfolio with purpose-built properties, because one day in the future we're pretty sure that there will be big players coming into the market, and then they might have appetite for a portfolio like that.
Because they have a lot of money.
Because they have a lot of money that they
can
have
raise
to place.
Easily money from the financial
and again,
markets.
The fundamentals are there. So I'm sure that if they can easily into the market, the exposure will be very good for their portfolio.
Great. How many properties do you own right now in Bulgaria officially? And what is the plan for the next years?
Right now we have roughly 200 renting units.
Yep.
Some of them under construction, but in the renting company we have that.
And the plan is?
The plan is 1,000.
1,000 by 2030, right?
Yes,
so it's a huge leap.
Yeah, but still, we are structured like investment funds, and we are attracting on a monthly basis. We're actually doing capital increases where new investors are invited on board, and I can tell you there's a big appetite to invest in our funds, getting the exposure to the Sofian real estate market. So I'm pretty sure that we will have to invest a lot of money the coming years.
Local or international investors?
That is Scandinavian investors.
A Scandinavian.
Yeah.
And if it's not a secret, of course, but if I'm a Scandinavian investor and I would like to invest in your fund, what return investment can I anticipate per year or in the next 5 years? Mm-hmm. Is it public? Is it something that you can share or not?
It is public. The Danish FSA, who are supervising funds like banks and funds like ours, they have a way to calculate it. So we have to calculate it like based on some historical statistics. Mm-hmm. So it's public, but it's roughly 10 or 11% compared, depending on which fund you're looking for.
10-11% annually.
Annually, but again, it's based on historical statistics.
Always.
So that is just a way we have to calculate it because it has to apply to obey to the regulations.
Let's clarify something. We always make projections based on historical data.
Yes.
It's not because we just put our finger right there and say, okay, the wind is coming from this direction.
No.
It's usually the prediction is being made on what has happened before, right?
Yes.
So it's always with a little star. It's always projected. That's why it's prognosis. All right.
We don't give any guarantees, but if you like the fundamentals about the market in Sofia, then you can get the exposure through our funds. So that is the way we tell the investors you can get the exposure to this market. We see the fundamentals like this, and if you agree and see the same case, then you can get the exposure via this fund.
Interesting. It comes to my attention that you put a lot of attention on the word fundamentals. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting, and real estate is being immovable and being a solid. Just attached to the ground.
Yes.
It has some fundamentals that nobody should ignore, and we should always look. Because, are you not concerned about the fact that Bulgaria is not growing as population, and it might be, it's actually through statistics, shrinking. It's negative growth.
Yes.
Are you not kind of like worried about that as an investor?
Yes, and that is also why we only invest in Sofia.
So you believe Sofia is like an island of like oasis?
Yes, because it's a mega trend all over the world. You see it no matter what country you go to, you see the same movement. You see it in Denmark, you see it in Germany, you see it everywhere.
So we're not unique?
It's not unique. Of course, there's different how much the population is growing or decreasing, but the fundamentals that people are moving from to the big cities and to the capitals, and they are studying and they are working in an office instead of at a farm, that is a mega trend which is going on all over the world and have done for 50 years and will be the same trend for the next many years. So that is no, we're not as scared about that.
You're not, but you always have analyzed that.
But of course, you have to invest in an area which is on its way up and not in an area which is on its way down. That is important.
Before we go into how to select an area where the projections show that it's going to be up, quite a quick one. What challenges do you face while entering a new real estate market like Bulgaria? And what were the challenges that you faced over here? Because a lot of investors are scared because some reasons, A, entering, or B, they're leaving because of those. They're leaving the country as business. What's your case? How do you see it as an international investor?
One of as I mentioned before, it took many years to learn how the market works here.
Yeah.
To learn the right stakeholders, how is the regulation, how is it compared to other places that we know of. So that is one thing. You have to do your homework before you start up.
Always.
So that is very actually the biggest obstacle before you can start. But then when you find your niche, as I mentioned before, then you have to explore it and make the growth. But back to your question was,
what are the challenges of a foreign investor of such size as you are?
Yes.
What did you face?
Yeah, but that was actually it. You have to spend a lot of time learning how the fundamentals work.
Yep.
And when you have learned that, then you have to find the right niche. And that's actually it. It's not that difficult.
How should a starting investor or an international investor should dig for information? Where should she or he collect information to do the homework, in your opinion?
There are many places to do that.
And to know the fundamentals.
Fundamentals, yes. You can look it up anywhere on the internet. It's not that complicated, but it just takes time. You can look up what are the forecasts for population, for growth, and compare it to other countries. Then of course there are also something about when you are inside the European Union. Then there's some stability, political stability. How does that work? Are there any uncertainties you have to be aware of? Currency risk, interest risk, and again, it's when I mention these fundamentals, it's actually fundamentals that are quite good here. You have low interest rate, for instance.
How much is in Denmark right now? Interest rate
actually,
for a mortgage?
Our is also quite low compared to the Eurozone, but it's roughly 3.5%. For a fixed rate, yes.
But it used to be lower, right?
It used to be zero, close to zero.
For a mortgage?
Half a percent, yes.
Is it fixed like in the United States, or it's a variable yield?
You can do both.
You can do both.
But before COVID, it was you could get 30 years fixed for 0.5%.
30 years for 0.5%?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So are the people selling right now when they have fixed mortgage?
Yeah, actually, then you can convert it. Then you can get a big gain. But because it's bond, you issue real estate bonds.
Yeah.
But that is another thing, because when I mentioned the high prices, that of course also is something that has to do with what the interest rates are.
Yeah.
But that is also something that is fundamentally good in Bulgaria, because you have very healthy bank system. So that supports the low interest rates also in the future.
Very interesting. You know, I gotta tell you that each of your sentences sparkles like tens of questions I would love to ask, but unfortunately we cannot stay here all day, and I'll keep on moving because it's so interesting. It's very, you gotta just take a look at that. When you're sitting on a high tree or at the peak, you see all the valley, all the mountains around you, and this is one of the benefits of having that position. You can see from your position, you can see a lot of things you cannot see when you're low, and it's not because of your position, but based on information on the scale of your business. So sometimes from so many trees you cannot see the forest, as we like to say.
Yeah.
But when you're up the hill, you can see a lot of things, and that's why I said about the question, because you have the option. Probably a lot of people are working for your company, doing analysis, doing research, doing this and that. And you have so much flow of information. You know exactly which is good, which is bad, which is like, and in your diplomat, you didn't say quite much about the challenges we have in Bulgaria. And we all know about those challenges. But it's always good to speak with somebody who has that point of view. And let's go back at what you just said. Finding your niche. Tell me something, based on what specific criteria do you select your investment properties? Because you select mainly buildings, existing, or you develop them. And how do you, what do you do to make sure that this is an area with potential? How do you recognize it?
Yeah, that is also, of course, the difficult part. And that is what requires a lot of, sometimes it's like a feeling, but if you walk in a
feeling in business.
I mean you have to invest in an area that you expect is going to be at a better place in 10 years than the other way around, of course. So, for instance, we see neighborhoods very close to the center here which I would expect would be much more developed in 10 years than they are today. So that is the areas that...
Can you be specific?
Close to here, actually. We have several plots that we have invested in. Just on the other side of Tor Alexander Boulevard, to be very specific.
Okay. So that part.
Pirotska, I like that street a lot.
You like Pirotska Street?
Yeah,
I do as well.
That area, because it has this very charming neighborhood.
Yes.
But still, there's still plots that are not developed at all. It's very central. So that is one of the areas that we have looked a lot into, because my expectation would be that area will be a completely different area in 10-20 years than it is today.
How it might look in 10 years based on your expectation?
I hope that it will hope that it will keep some of its charm.
Yeah.
But I can also see that there are some areas that are really mature for being developed, or some buildings that could be mature for developing. I see that is one of the areas that I like a lot, actually, and we have invested a lot there. So, okay, based on your experience, what advice would you give to somebody to how else to recognize a growing area, let's say in as a neighborhood in Sofia or other places? But again, it comes back to the fundamentals. Yeah. I mean, if it's central, or if it's an area where people are attracted to, but it's not completely developed, because if it's too developed, then there's a risk that you have reached the top and it may be on its way down. So you have to see that there's some fundamental potential in the area. It's not that I'm saying that this is the only area, but it's just the fundamentals are there, and that is why it's a good example why we like that area. Of course, we're looking all over Sofia for good projects. But
what is the criteria for choosing the projects? Like when you see them, you have something like a checklist. Okay, so what has to be checked to say green light on that?
Yes, we have several. Of course, there are financial things that we look into. We need to expect that this would be something that where we will add value, and the value will increase from buying the plot, doing the construction, to managing the property afterwards, and we have to be sure that there are tenants for the property to the right price. But that is one thing. Another thing that we actually started last year is to have a score with ESG, where we look into how is the access to public transportation, how can we be part of the neighborhood, building up the society on different items than only the financial items. So we actually make a score for the properties based on ESG, which is also like how is the insulation, how is consumption, footprint, materials that we use. That is also criteria that we look into when we choose a construction.
So you have like a frame, like a matrix.
Yes.
And each option that comes to you is like, okay, we put it, or it fits or it doesn't fit.
More or less, yes. It's not that complicated. At the end of the day, of course, you have also to believe in the project, but the numbers are not complicated to do, because you can easily make a spreadsheet and calculate how much is the price and what is the
spreadsheet, right?
And what is the expected sale price. So that is not so complicated. But then there's all the other parts, like the ESG parts that we look into, and then at the end of the day, you have to believe. Also have some kind of belief in the area and the neighborhood, and feel that it's some place where you could actually live yourself. If you feel that this is a good area where I would like to be myself, then probably other people feel the same.
Do you live in some of your properties?
No, I'm live in a hotel, but I'm here.
Oh, come on! Can you buy the hotel?
but I actually, one thing that I always do, I live at different hotels every time to experience different part of the city. So that is actually also something that I.
The reason that I ask you about this frame is that would you agree that we're talking about the small guys here,
yes,
like the guys who are about to start or just started, like 1-2 properties or small portfolio, but we can always model, as we said, what the big guys are doing or the successful businesses in order to repeat and kind of like replicate their model. And doing business is not complicated. We complicate it. And I always suggest that if you want to have repeatable results, results that match your ideas about a return, you should have a system. You should have workflow. You should have like models. And what you just told me is a confirmation of the fact that every time that something comes on your way, and I'm sure they will grow, because the more famous you get, the more people will try to make some business with you. And then you'll be like, okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and pick the ones that are closer to your, let's say, to what you want to do, to your goals. But you got to have goals, and you have to have the systems to achieve them, right?
Yeah, that's true. Of course, the easier you make it easy for yourself if you have the possibility to scale up the business. So of course, if you make like a system which works, then you can just press repeat, and then you can scale up easily.
It's like a manufacturer. Manufacturer.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it could be done.
Yes, it could. Of course, one thing that because you had asked this question before, what one of the obstacles could be for new companies or new investors. One of the things that you have to, and that is why I have thought a bit about this. Sometimes the administration part can be a big obstacle. So you have to keep, and that is maybe also why you asked me before, why don't you build yourself? Well, sometimes you have to outsource something, so you don't use a lot of your time doing something that you're maybe not so good at, or at least it's not your core business at the moment. So focus on the things, the parts where you can add value, and outsource the other parts, because otherwise you might it might absorb all your time, and you will never do the growth.
And you can think.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an amazing advice, and I just would like to underline it, like bold it, and put a tattoo on that, because this is so good. This is a mature advice, because some people I see, they want to do everything at the point that they should not be doing everything, because I really think that if you're good at something, keep on doing that, and find the people who are better than you on the other parts, so it goes like a factory, like a machine. It's great. Okay, you being one of the largest landlords in Sofia, what trends do you see in the real estate rental market in Sofia? Besides what we discussed already.
Yeah, I think I have said a lot of it already, but maybe just one thing to add. The world is changing a lot all the time, and that is also one of the reasons why we invest in real estate and not in offices or shops or hotels, for instance, like you mentioned, because people always, no matter how the things develop, their home will always be something that they will need some place to sleep. No matter if they are doing their shopping online, or maybe they are traveling a lot, they want a home, and they want a nice home. And I think that the people's home will become more valuable for them in the future, because it's something that, I mean, if you in the future you can maybe be at home sitting online doing most of your work, you can do your shopping, you can do more or less everything from home. So you will probably be a lot of in your home, and then so that is why that market we see that as more stable than, for instance, the office market or the
this commercial or something
retail. Yeah, exactly. So that is why we focused on that. Because we see the risk as lower, because AI can take over your job, but it cannot take over your apartment.
Yes, if we don't look at the Matrix as a movie, and we don't follow that path where one day we're just gonna lie somewhere and live in a metal world, and the only thing that we're gonna need is something to support our bodies, and we're gonna live somewhere in the cloud. I don't know, but it's already happening. I think one way or another.
The development is already there.
Yeah, but I think that we're gonna witness it at a later point. But most probably it's unlimited world, and I personally believe that. One day the limitations of the physical body will be just like blown away by what you can achieve in the virtual life.
Yeah, maybe.
And one day we might be like just having something in our throat and just breathing or being fed and live a life without knowing that we don't actually exist into that. But anyway, what is your projection about the real estate market in Sofia? Like, most probably you expect it to grow up. Do you have some specific numbers that you think it's going to achieve in the next 1, 3, 5 years?
That's a hard one. I would say we are very conservative in our estimations. And again, it's because I could say every number here, but at the end of the day, nobody will know it for sure. Our calculations, we say 3% per year, but luckily we have been surprised on the upside every year because it has been higher. But on the long term, we expect, say, the yield from the rent will probably be 4 to 5% per year, plus the value adding on our properties, and then we probably tend to close to 10%.
10%. So you expect the property market to raise price-wise 5-6%, 4-5% rentals increase.
Yeah, then rental increase also.
Up to 10%.
I don't know.
Expectations.
I hope so.
You hope so. But what will happen? Would you change your strategy if it doesn't happen this way?
No, because the purpose of the funds that we have is to have exposure to this market. So as long as investors want exposure to the market in Sofia, then we invest in the market in Sofia for on behalf of our investors. And then our job is to manage that efficient and the best way. But if you want exposure to this market, then we invest in this market. Right. And again, the fundamentals are there, and we expect the return to be way higher than if you invested in western part of Europe. But of course, there are no guarantees.
Okay. What do you think is the healthy ratio between a property price and its price as a rental? Because right now, if somebody makes a general assumption for the Sofia rental market, the return on investment might be about 3.5 up to 4%. Yes. And we're talking about gross.
Yes.
We're not talking about net rentals. And at the same point, some people say, oh, our prices are too high, sales prices, or our rentals are too high. What do you think it's based on your philosophy is a healthy ratio between that, like yearly, or how many years or gross rental income multiplier? How many months should one property should pay for itself? Or give me a little bit
I think I understand the question, but it's very difficult to answer. But when we see relatively low net yields on the rental properties here, then it is because there are big expectations for the growth in the rent in the future. That is at least how I see it. So of course, maybe you start with a relatively low yield rent divided by the prices, the yield. But if you can increase the rent relatively more the coming years, then over time you will have a pretty good earning anyway. So I see that as a sign that the market actually expects that the rents will go up in the future. That is why you're willing to trade at relatively low yields.
Okay.
I hope that made sense, but that is my philosophy behind this.
I think it does make sense, and I just wanted to get inside your head to share your experience, because many people say, oh, it's not worth to invest in real estate because you get only like 3-4%, or actually you get actual 2% return on investment. People do forget the fact that you have price appreciation, sales price, and many other things. Yes. But something came to my mind. Let's say on one hand you have this very very separated kind, if I can say, many owners of real estate rent 1 or 2 or 5 apartments. Well, it's not like that, or the picture is changing in Europe and the United States. A lot of companies like yours do own huge portfolios of rentals. And let's step into the shoes of the renter. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a renter choosing to live in property managed by a fund or a company like yours, in a building where everything is owned and facilitated and managed, versus renting from mom and pop or from the single investor?
First of all, I think it gives you some security that it's a professional renting company that you have a contract with, because of course we are very focused that we live up to every regulations in.
You follow the rules, right?
Sorry?
You follow the rules.
Yes, of course.
And you
yes.
pay taxes, I hope.
We pay taxes.
And because you know, sometimes in Bulgaria, how much is the rent? Give me this, no
of
bank.
We have to do that. That is also part of our ESG strategy, actually, that we are a good example for the society. But at the end of the day, we have to be sure that we don't get any media who are chasing us, that we are not treating our tenants correctly, because we have a brand that we have to protect. So of course we are behaving like we have to, according to all rules in Bulgaria. And if you find an individual, I'm not saying that people are not behaving, but I'm just saying that there's a different risk. And if it's from family, I'm sure that's not a problem. Then everything will be great. But it's a different risk, and you have to be aware of that.
Okay, so if we can extract an advice from somebody who started 1 or 2 properties, if you want to compete with the big guys, or if you just want to make sure that the clients, the renters, are easy and they feel calm, follow the rules and follow the law.
Because, we have to.
Because
that is also fair. That is also fair competition. So of course we have to follow the rules, everybody.
But it doesn't happen in reality, right?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
But I'm saying that.
Yeah, you're saying that.
I heard that while I was taking a shower in the morning. I heard people don't pay taxes. I heard that people don't follow some rules. And it's the mentality. And at the same time, you try. I'm not saying it's bad. It's their choice.
Yeah.
Like in the real estate world, we pay our taxes, and I sleep easy because I pay taxes. I pay a lot of taxes, but my sleep is restful. And the other point is that, okay, this is an advantage. So if I rent, because based on what you say, I'm trying to give an example to the people and say, follow the rules. Long term, build that reputation, renters will come. Because if you want to make money, you invest in one property, then you're good at it, and the bill or everything works out great. You buy a second one, the third, you might attract some capital, you might go to some funds that will be willing to do some business with you. And if you have the reputation, the results will follow. What else, like advantages, do you think from being such a company and living in a building which is owned and operated by?
It's easier for us to make agreements with sub-suppliers when we're managing the properties, making sure of cleaning, repairments, the green areas. So all of that is of course easier if you have a big portfolio than if you only have one apartment in one building and another apartment in another building in another part of town.
It's like
it gives you a more efficient daily operation, of course, to have one big property where you have 25 or 50 or 100 units. That's easier to manage. So that is one advantage. For the tenants, I would say we have dedicated staff. You can always call, you can always write. We have systems to make sure that everything is aligned, collecting rent, sending out reminders. I mean, if you can, as I mentioned before, one of the big issues when you're starting new businesses that you get a lot of administrative tasks that you have to be aware of. So if you can do that more efficient by doing it digitally or having a big portfolio, then you just have an advantage.
Great. Are you concerned about this rising tenants' rights in many states in the United States or some European countries where the rights of the tenants are being they have more and more rights, and at the same time the rights of the landlords are going down? And for example, sometimes the government moves in and puts their hand on, they say you cannot charge more than that because we have a problem with the rents. It happened in Berlin, it happened in Amsterdam, it happened in the States.
It happened in Denmark also.
Yeah.
We also have...
What do you feel? Do you feel that there's going to be a problem with that? And how do you feel about that?
No, as long as we have fair competition, then I'm not afraid of regulations, because as long as the regulations are the same for everybody, then we will follow the regulations, of course. But I would just say to the politicians before they do this, my fear could be that some of the areas that could be developed the coming years would not be developed if they make too strict regulations on for instance, rent in the future, then we will see these areas that could be developed just stay like they are today because nobody wants to invest. So that is just something that they have to think of before they make too strict the regulation.
Yes or no for government ceilings on the rental market?
No, of course no.
Personal opinion, personal, not company.
Of course no, because I believe in free market and that we can make agreements both with tenants, and everybody should be able to make the agreement that they want to. And as long as it's fair and for everybody, then of course I want to operate in a liberal market. And I would also say that it's a pity if investments should stop in developing Sofia because politicians make too strict regulations for rent.
Let's open up a big one, Eurozone. Bulgaria is preparing to join the Eurozone. How do you think that this is going to change the life and the real estate market as soon as A, we have a date, a specific date for joining, and B, when we join, based on your experience and data and your projections for the market?
I would say in the short run, I don't think it will influence a lot. And when I say that, it's because it had been spoken about for so long that I think that the market is waiting for this. But when we look a little further down the road, then for other investors who are not here today, they would start having more appetite investing in Bulgaria when it's part of the Eurozone. So maybe they're not looking today and they are not aware that Bulgaria is on its way, but when they in the future would look for investments, then it would be more valuable for them to go into Sofia. So 2, 3, 5 years down the road, it will mean a lot because you will completely remove this currency risk. I know that it's not a real risk today, but if you look from an office in London where you have to place a lot of money, for instance, and you're not aware of the fixed rates and how it works, then it just looks like a risk from far away. And that is also why I'm saying that in the market where people know, like we know the market, you know the market, I don't think that will influence a lot from one day to the other. But on the long term, it will for sure attract bigger investors.
Do you expect the property prices to go up?
Yes.
By what percent?
But not because of that. Not in the long. Yes, in the long term, I expect it. I would not say put a percentage on it, but I'm sure it would add to appetite from big investors.
All right. You said that you're working with a lot of billions under your management. Give me an advice on how small or mid-sized investors can structure and attract the financial scheme, I mean totally positive scheme, but to attract the capital in order to fulfill larger investments than 1 or 2 apartments. Like what is your advice on attracting capital and how to structure it in general? Because I'm sorry for interrupting. Probably I should give some explanation. I speak with a lot of people and they say, I don't have the money to invest. I don't have the capital. And they give me many reasons why they cannot invest. And one of them is because I don't have the money. Your call on that.
Yes, but as you mentioned, if you have 1, 2 apartments and want to grow, then the best thing you can do is to show a track record. Show a track record, show it to potential investors who have money, because there are always appetite to invest, but you just need to have confidence in the person or the company that you invest in. And if you can show the confidence by some good track records, then you're already a long way down the road to attract new investors.
Great. So
and that is also why we have spent so many years to starting this up, because we need to show a track record.
Solving foundations.
And then you can grow afterwards.
So I totally agree with you. You say if you want to attract somebody to trust you, show them a proof of trust. And this is show me your reputation, show me your results. But if you have nothing to show and you've been hiding your income and you did not pay your taxes, you cannot attract other people's money.
No, hopefully not, because then it doesn't look. Then I would not invest in somebody where I could not
track their.
You need to see the tracking. You need to be able to review everything. It needs to be transparent.
All right. From an institutional investor's point of view, what do smaller landlords often overlook when investing in real estate rentals?
I think I will come back to something that I already said, and that is maybe 2 things actually. One thing is the administrative burden, which can be a lot if you're doing it all by yourself. But another thing is maybe that you risk to invest in an area that is already developed because overcrowded and maybe too expensive because it has a good reputation, of course. But if it has already been developed, then it might be the starting price might be too high.
Okay. We're approaching the end of our conversation, but before we go into the more personal questions, I have a couple of questions that I would like your point of view. What is the biggest myth in the real estate investing world that should be shattered?
Oh, that was a difficult one.
I know, I'm sorry, it was not part of our pre-conversation, but authentic answer.
Maybe we have been around a lot of things already, but maybe this regarding the bubble, because I can say that in Copenhagen we have said for I don't know how many years that now the prices cannot increase anymore, and then the next year they increase even more. So those bubbles are very often people feel that prices have become too high, but they forget that their salaries might have increased at the same time. So maybe that's a myth that is that these bubbles are building up because we just haven't seen them, even though we have the feeling that they are there. We don't see them.
What do you think should be the number one habit of the real estate investor?
To behave, to behave properly.
Behave properly according to laws.
Laws and be part of the society, because real estate is really important part of the society. It's whole neighborhood you're building up. It does something to the people that lives there, so you have to behave to the society, to of course the regulations that you're part of, but it's also an important part of the society.
Great. How do you think that the artificial intelligence will change the real estate market, besides what you mentioned before about the commercial and residential?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in technology, but I can say that one thing that it for sure will do is that it will increase productivity. So it will make people salary, their net salary, their purchase power, it will make it bigger. Because the productivity will increase, and that is my expectation, will also influence the pricing of houses in attractive areas. So when I said that artificial intelligence will do something about how people see their home, that is actually one of the things that I meant with it, that it will increase the productivity, the wages, and where should people put the extra money they have? They will do more pleasure vacations, but they also want to live properly. So I think that will also be pushing prices upwards and pushing the requirement for development upwards, because people want to live properly, because they will have more a bigger wage that they can spend on housing. Yes.
So it depends, friend or foe. It depends on the perception of the people. They should embrace it or fight with it. It's their choice.
You cannot fight it.
You cannot fight, right? It's too late, right?
No, you cannot fight it. It's impossible.
It's impossible because it's bigger.
Yeah, and your competitors would use it anyway. So you can just start. You have to adapt to it.
Just row on the boat down the river. All right. Something very interesting. What is the one thing you think that a real estate investor should stop doing immediately, in general, based on your experience?
Oh, it's very specific. What you should stop doing immediately.
From what you see that you dislike, or you look like you think it's suicidal in the business, like
I don't. To be honest, I don't know what to answer to that question. Normally, I can answer all questions, but I haven't seen something that I dislike so much that I would say they should stop tomorrow. Doing it now, so I think I will avoid giving an answer to that.
All right. That was a very diplomatic answer. All right, based on your career in politics. Yeah. Okay, before we go into the more personal questions, which I ask every single guest here, did we miss something that we should have said? Did we miss a topic or a question that is good to finish with?
Now, maybe I should I have a saying that I usually do, that I use a lot myself, and that is the trend is your friend. And when I say that, when you found this niche, something that you're good at, and you have the trend is the right way, then you just have to follow it and explore the opportunities that it gives.
All right, great. Now we're going to the final part of our meeting with you, and I ask those questions which are typical for everyone. So, quick answers. If the real estate market disappears tomorrow, what business would you pursue? What would you do?
There are two options, then I could go back to shipping or politics, but politics I need to be elected, so it's probably shipping.
Which do you prefer? Which do you like most?
I don't know, I like both, but politics is also very exciting, so maybe I would prefer that.
Politics, great. What motivates you every morning when you wake up?
I like to be part of this positive development. I think it's fantastic to go around and see some of the properties there have been some very old ruins years back, and now we see modern properties and happy tenants. That is motivating for me to be part of building up and develop a city.
Great. What are your biggest life mistakes and how did they help you become better?
Of course, I've done investments that was maybe not the best idea afterwards, but it's always easy afterwards. But it's like lesson money often. When you make a mistake, then you know what not to do next time. Of course, I've done that also, especially investing in something, and when you just afterwards could tell yourself that you just hadn't been true enough in your research. So that is maybe.
And what is your favorite business book or podcast or a show that you can recommend?
I would say podcast. I'm actually most into news podcast where I listen a lot to what's going on in the world. So I don't have any recommendation, especially particular in business segment. But
some book, favorite book.
In business-wise, it's actually My Rich Dad, My Poor Dad, which is a very famous book also.
This one got me started 20 years ago, back in a little bit more than 20 years.
Yes, so that one.
All right, and the final question. How do you want to be remembered, Anders?
As an honest and decent behaving CEO of Sophia Residential, I hope.
That is great.
And part of building up a new neighborhood, hopefully.
That's a great one. Well, thank you very much for visiting. Thank you very much for this honest conversation and your advice. Because if somebody reads through the lines and read the actual lines, they can extract so much wisdom. They can model and they can apply in their business. And everybody started from somewhere, right? And even the big guys started from somewhere. You know, it's easy to say, oh, they're big, they have millions and billions. It's easy for them to say, no, success leaves clues. So this is the part of our podcast where we try to share your stories, and yours is incredible. And I keep my fingers crossed, and I gotta tell you why. We don't do any business with you. It's not because some people say, oh, you say that because, you know, you might have some financial interest. No, I don't. No. What I would love to see is you guys succeed, and I'll tell you why. Because you import money from Europe into our economy. You provide jobs to the people, you provide beds to the people, you provide business, you act as an example. And if you're successful, others will come, and I'm sure a lot of your competitors who know you, most probably they're on the edge and they're willing to come in Bulgaria, especially if we join the Eurozone and as soon as you show the proofs of success. So I'm more than happy to see you guys succeeding, because this will be great, not only for you, your employees and their families, but for Bulgarians and the people that you do business with in the local market and everything. Because, you know, if something is attractive, somebody will come, right?
Yes.
One day, BlackRock will buy. One day, Vanguard will buy. One day, the big guys will come. What will happen? I don't know. Let's prepare now because they're coming, right?
They will.
Alright, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Дами и господа, за мен беше огромно удоволствие господин Андерс Йохансон, главен изпълнителен директор на София Residential, компания, която управлява повече от 500 милиона в имоти. За мен беше огромно удоволствие, надявам се и вие да вземете вашето. Ако този епизод ви е харесал, задължително напишете някой коментар, дайте едно палче или задължително влезте на нашия уебсайт, където можете да се запишете да получавате новините и най-новите неща относно нашия подкаст. Разбира се, ако имате гост или тема, която искате да засегнем, винаги добре дошли, пишете ни, за да можем да продължим да правим предавания, които са интересни за вас. Това беше един от епизодите в сезон 2. Благодаря ви, бъдете здрави и вземайте пример от добрите, за да може да надминете дори и техният успех. От мен Щелян Калчев, хубав и успешен ден. Чао!